Your attachment style is controlling your love life. And the most surprising part is that you are not even aware of it. You think your relationships are based on choice, chemistry, timing, or destiny. You think you just like certain people and don't feel anything for others. But in reality, a hidden emotional system inside your mind is silently deciding how you love, how you react, how you chase, how you avoid, and how you lose people. And until you understand this system, you will keep repeating the same emotional patterns again and again, even with different people. What you call love is often not love at first. It is a learned emotional response. It is your brain reacting to familiarity, safety, fear, excitement, or emotional wounds from your past. Your attachment style is basically your emotional blueprint. It is how your nervous system learned to connect with others based on your early life experiences and past relationships. And once this blueprint is formed, it starts running automatically in your adult relationships without your permission. Most people don't realize that they are not choosing their relationship behavior in real time. They are reacting from deeply stored emotional programming. That's why you may say things like, I don't know why I overthink so much, or I always attract emotionally unavailable people, or I always ruin good relationships. But these are not random events. These are patterns. And patterns come from attachment styles. At the core of attachment theory, there are four main patterns that shape how people behave in relationships. The first one is secure attachment. People with secure attachment are emotionally stable in relationships. They are comfortable with closeness and also comfortable with space. They do not panic when someone takes time to reply. They do not overthink small changes in behavior. They do not chase love or avoid it. Instead, they experience relationships in a balanced and calm way. They communicate clearly, set healthy boundaries, and trust without losing themselves. But the most important thing about secure individuals is that they are emotionally self-regulated. Their happiness does not depend entirely on another person. Then there is anxious attachment. This is where emotional intensity becomes very strong. People with anxious attachment love deeply, but they fear losing love even more deeply. Their mind is constantly active in relationships. A delayed reply feels like rejection. A small change in tone feels like distance. Silence feels like danger. They overthink everything, not because they are weak, but because their nervous system is sensitive to emotional uncertainty. They seek reassurance again and again because they need emotional certainty to feel safe. But the problem is that this constant need for reassurance often creates pressure in relationships, which sometimes pushes the other person away, creating exactly the fear they were trying to avoid. On the other side, there is avoidant attachment. People with avoidant patterns value independence very strongly. They are emotionally self-sufficient on the surface, but internally, they often struggle with closeness. When someone gets too close emotionally, they start feeling uncomfortable. Not because they don't care, but because emotional closeness feels overwhelming or suffocating. So they pull away, not physically always, but emotionally. They avoid deep conversations, they delay emotional responses, and they create distance when things start feeling intense. But deep inside, avoidant individuals still desire connection. The difference is that they fear losing control or losing their independence inside relationships. Then there is fearful avoidant attachment, which is a mix of both anxious and avoidant patterns. This is where emotional confusion becomes very strong. A person wants love but also fears it at the same time. They chase closeness and then push it away. They feel deeply attached but also feel scared when attachment becomes real. This creates a cycle of emotional push and pull, where relationships become unstable, intense, and confusing for both sides. One moment they are emotionally available, and the next moment they disappear or shut down. Now, the most important question is, why did these attachment styles form in the first place? The answer lies in early emotional experiences. If a person grew up in a stable environment where love was consistent, predictable, and emotionally safe, they usually develop secure attachment. But if love was inconsistent, sometimes available and sometimes not, the brain learns to become anxious in relationships. If emotional needs were ignored or independence was forced too early, the brain learns to suppress emotional dependency and becomes avoidant. And if emotional experiences were unpredictable, sometimes safe and sometimes painful, the brain develops a mixed fearful pattern. The important thing to understand is that your attachment style is not your fault, but it is your responsibility once you become aware of it. Because what happens in adulthood is not random. Your brain tries to recreate what it already knows, even if it is unhealthy. That is why some people repeatedly fall for emotionally unavailable partners. It is not because they enjoy pain, but because their nervous system recognizes familiarity in that emotional distance. The brain often confuses familiarity with safety, even when it is actually discomfort. This is also why many relationships feel extremely intense in the beginning, but later become painful. When two people with different attachment styles interact, especially anxious and avoidant, a cycle begins. The anxious person seeks closeness, the avoidant person pulls away, the anxious person becomes more anxious, and the avoidant becomes more distant. This creates emotional tension, which both people interpret as strong chemistry. But in reality, it is not healthy love. It is nervous system activation. One of the biggest illusions in love is that intensity means compatibility. People believe that if something feels strong, emotional, and overwhelming, it must be true love. But intensity is not proof of love. It is proof of activation. Your nervous system can be activated by uncertainty, inconsistency, emotional distance, or unpredictability. And that activation feels like attraction. But it is actually anxiety mixed with desire. Your brain also plays a major role in maintaining these patterns through dopamine. When someone gives you inconsistent attention, your brain releases dopamine in unpredictable cycles. Sometimes you get emotional rewards, sometimes you don't. This inconsistency creates stronger psychological attachment than consistent behavior. That is why emotionally unavailable people often feel more addictive. Your brain is constantly chasing the next emotional reward, which creates obsession rather than stable love. Another powerful mechanism is emotional familiarity. If your past experiences involved inconsistent love, emotional neglect, or unpredictability, your brain becomes conditioned to see those patterns as normal. So when you meet someone similar, your nervous system feels at home, even if it is unhealthy. This is why people often say, "I always end up with the same type of person." It is not coincidence. It is repetition of emotional conditioning. Attachment also affects how you interpret silence, distance, and communication. For an anxious person, silence feels like rejection. For an avoidant person, emotional closeness feels like pressure. For a secure person, both distance and closeness are manageable. So the same situation can feel completely different depending on your attachment style. This is why relationships are often misunderstood from both sides. One person thinks I am being ignored, while the other thinks I need space, but both are reacting from their attachment system. One of the deepest truths about attachment is that it is not just emotional, it is also physical. Your nervous system reacts to relationships like a survival system. When you feel safe, your body relaxes. When you feel uncertain, your body becomes anxious. When you feel rejected, your body enters stress mode. That is why relationship stress can feel physically heavy. It is not just thoughts, it is your entire nervous system reacting. Over time, these patterns become your relationship identity. You start saying things like, "I am just someone who overthinks," or "I am not good at relationships," or "I always fall for the wrong people." But in reality, you are just acting out your attachment style repeatedly without awareness. And the moment awareness enters, everything begins to change. Because awareness breaks automatic reaction. When you start observing your behavior instead of blindly reacting, you create space between emotion and action. You stop texting immediately when anxious. You stop withdrawing immediately when overwhelmed. You start asking yourself why you feel what you feel instead of just acting on it. And this is where healing begins. Fixing your attachment style is not about becoming a different person. It is about becoming a more aware version of yourself. You don't erase your patterns overnight. You slowly rewire them through conscious behavior. You learn to regulate your emotions instead of depending on others for stability. You learn to choose consistency over intensity. You learn to value emotional safety over emotional chaos. And slowly, your relationships start changing. Not because other people suddenly become different, but because you become different in how you respond. You stop chasing unavailable people. You stop fearing small distance. You stop confusing anxiety with love. And you start recognizing real emotional connection when it appears in your life. The truth is simple but powerful. Your attachment style is not your destiny. It is your starting point. And once you understand it, you are no longer controlled by it. You start choosing consciously instead of reacting emotionally. And that is where real transformation happens in your love life. Because in the end, love is not just about finding the right person. It is about becoming emotionally aware enough to experience love in a healthy way.